Truth Traveler Radio Show. I'm Erin Dagans. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending time with us and caring enough to listen to shows such as this, because getting the truth out there is the future of our country. Because if we don't, it's pretty dismal. Our guest tonight found out probably the hard way just how true that statement probably is. If we don't stand for the truth and we're not allowed to speak freely and we don't try to right the wrongs, we're nowhere. And what's gone on out west in Harney County, Oregon, especially with the death of Lavoy Finicum at the hands of the Oregon State Police and the FBI, has shaken a lot of us in this country. The people out there are trying to stand and trying to show others where there is problems, trying to show others that if we want the Constitution to have its teeth, we have to help it get its teeth back. They're trying to explain to people what the Constitution is, what it stands for. And our guest tonight, he's dedicated his whole life to helping people in his county. His whole life is revolved around putting his life on the line in order to help others. He was the fire chief, also in charge of all the ambulances for over 24 years in Harney County. Been on the volunteer fire department. And he had a few issues when all of this started in his little bitty town of Burns, Oregon. His name is Chris Briels, and he has a story to share with you tonight. Welcome to the show tonight, Chris.
How are you doing?
I think I'm doing better than you. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm not bad for an old fella.
Well, that's good. You're still kicking, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Chris, let's start. A lot of people know who you are. A lot of people don't. Okay, because a lot of people don't have Facebook. They don't have computers. They're listening on the telephone, that kind of thing. Let's start at the beginning. All of this stuff showed up. I mean, I think you knew about the Hammonds before Ammon and everybody showed up out there. But let's start at the beginning and let's make it personal. Let's show at first what you've gone through as a man, trying to reconcile what was going on in your little town.
Okay.
So everybody shows up. I mean, you knew about the Hammonds and their problems before this or not?
Yes, I had heard about them. I had seen some stuff on the TV. It was interesting. It wasn't in my little town, so I thought, wow, that is really, really interesting, but I don't really understand it very well. But my eyebrows went up when I found out that the federal government had left the Bundys alone and hadn't bothered them anymore. That really caused me to wonder, wow, they must have been on the right side of the law. Something was going on that the federal government would turn and leave them alone. So it was pretty intriguing to me to understand a little bit more about it. And then when Hammond Bundy came here and was going to speak at our local fairgrounds, the all-purpose building, I wanted to know because I had heard that he was going to be speaking, and it's like, wow, something in our little dinky town here, I try to learn as much as I can about what's going on in my backyard, so I thought, I'm going to go see what's going on. I'd like to hear this. And so I went to a meeting out there at the fairgrounds, and Ammon talked about our Constitution. He talked a lot about history, the reason our Constitution was written the way it was. There were other documents before that didn't necessarily work, and then the Constitution did. We talked about the Declaration of Independence. We talked about some of the history where there was problems with some of the judges that were working under Great Britain, and how they had formed a committee of safety to take care of those problems, to do something to be checks and balances for the tyranny. And I thought, wow, that is really interesting. When I went to school, we had a civics class, and they talked about the Constitution, And we all paid attention long enough to pass the test so that we could go chase girls or boys or whatever.
Right, me too. I understand. Yep.
And we didn't realize.
I didn't care.
Important, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stress how important our Constitution is. If we expect to be free in the United States of America, we need to understand the Constitution and our rights, and we need to stand up for them.
I couldn't agree with you more.
It is so important. I mean...
Well, how many people were at that talk that Ammon gave?
Oh, there's probably 60 or 70, I would say.
Okay.
It wasn't a crowd, but there were 60 or 70 people there.
And some of these people were probably ranchers, but probably not all of them, correct?
Right, not all of them, but the majority of them probably were.
Okay.
The ranchers here in Harney County have been having a lot of the same types of issues that they've been having in every other county in Oregon and in the western United States, you know, as far as with the BLM and the Forest Service and some of the overreaches of authority, and some of the land grabs that are going on, have gone on, and continue to be attempted. It's really interesting, and it makes a whole lot more sense when it's something you can understand and you can see what the changes have been in your own community. It makes it much more real.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Your community's been through the ringer.
Yeah, it's a practical application of your knowledge. And it just really hit me that, wow, this is getting way bad.
So when you listen to Ammon speak and, you know, you're kind of going back through everything in your head, your own thoughts, did you think, wow, this guy's not crazy?
Oh, yes, I did feel that. You know, I sat right there 10 feet in front of him, and I watched the man's eyes, and I listened to his tone of voice, and I watched his expressions, and I watched how emotional and how totally focused he was on what he had to say. He wasn't giving us a canned program so that somebody gave him $1. He was volunteering his time, and he was trying to share valuable information with us because he had a great passion to help people.
Okay.
And you could see it. You could see it. You could feel it.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I know Ammon, and he was especially passionate about what was going on with the Hammonds. I hate this Ammon and Hammond thing.
Yeah.
Of course, we were all really upset with that. So did you speak with him like one-on-one after his talk, Chris?
Oh, yes. After his talk, I've spoken with him several times.
Okay.
I've shook the man's hand, and I've looked him in the eye, and that's the way men greet each other.
Yes.
They shake their hand, and you look them in the eye, and you can get a sense, you can get a feeling of what this person is or is not.
True.
We all have that sense if we just pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of like when you bring somebody home and your dog bites them right away, you better pay attention.
If my dog doesn't like you, I'm probably not going to like you either.
Exactly.
That's right. So after this, and then, now did you take part in the parade that they had?
Well, let me back up just a tiny bit. Can I?
Okay. Sure.
Okay.
Yes, Chris, go ahead.
At that meeting, he talked to us about how a committee of safety could be formed, mm-hmm. and how they use that to stomp out some tyrannical things in the past, and how our Constitution had set that up so that if you start a committee of safety, it's voted on by a group of your peers, and then you have some say-so, and you can have some leverage against the government to listen to your problems. You know, I have a disagreement with you, and now I actually have a legal precedence that I can put that forth to you in a peaceful manner and say, here are my concerns, and I want you to look at these things, and let's talk about this problem. I'm not happy. And I thought, what a great thing. And I'll be totally honest with you, when it said all the way up to and including calling in the militia. Mm-hmm. And boy, my eyes raised up right then. I thought, calling in the militia. You know, to me, the militia, oh my gosh, that sounds like a civil war or rebellion, or, you know.
Well, over the years, they've demonized the militias. They really have. It's been nothing short of a campaign to make them out to be these kooks.
Except they're not kooks.
They're not. No. That's what I'm saying. They're not. I know people in militias, and these are good and decent and honorable people. They are. That we need we need more to join the militias. So I'll shut up. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, they are very, very honorable people, and they're self-disciplined. You know, here's another subject I just didn't understand, didn't know anything about. You know, I heard the word militia, and it's like, oh God, that scares me. You know, a bunch of kooks. You know?
Yeah, you think about them all dressed up in their ghillie suits with, camo paint on their face, grease paint on their face, and running around the woods with, like, AK-47s, right? Yeah. That's what I used to think.
Yeah, you're not quite sure what to think. You know, some guys that want to go play war or something like that.
But they washed out of the military. They're the military rejects is what I used to think. But I was wrong, so, yeah.
Education is an amazing thing. You know, if you keep learning, you keep getting a little smarter, and you can apply that information in different ways. You know, but when I heard that, a committee of safety could pull the trigger on the militia, and you could have
hold that right there, Chris, at the committee of safety, and they're bringing in the militia if it's needed. Hold that right there, and that's where we're going to pick up after this break. You're listening to Chris Briels, former fire chief for Harney County. Welcome back. Our guest tonight is Chris Briels. He's the former fire marshal, fire chief of Harney County. And right before the break, Chris, you were learning about committees of safety, and then the whole shot to the chest here was the militias could be called in.
Yes. And when I found out that the committee would be strong enough to call a militia and maybe start a bloodbath in my county, but I've lived here since 1978, I thought, wow, this is serious stuff. I need to really pay attention to this, And I think there was no one talking in the background. They were paying attention to Ammon, and then Ryan Payne also talked. Ryan Payne's incredibly knowledgeable as far as history, and they had our attention. And then Ammon asked, if people were tired of the BLM overreaches and the land grabs and stuff like that. And, were people happy with the government? And no, not necessarily. And is there a way that you could do something? Yes, there is. And somebody said, well, let's form a committee of safety. How do we do that? And he says, it's a simple vote with your peers, And so somebody nominated, somebody voted or moved that we form a committee of safety. And somebody seconded it, and we voted, and it was unanimous. Everybody in the room said, yeah, we need a committee of safety. And we thought, wow, we've got a committee of safety. Well, we didn't have a clue what we had. And then we said, well, you need members. And so they started nominating people to be on the committee. And I was the second person nominated. I didn't raise my hand and say, pick me. I want to, go crazy or, give up all of my personal life. But someone in the group that has known me for a long, long time nominated me. And I thought, well, if they're going to nominate me to this committee and it's that serious, then I probably want to be on this committee because I don't want a bloodbath in my community. I don't believe in that. And so I remained on the committee. And we had 7 of us. One of them, the first time that we got together in an informal meeting, he bowed out. He had religious problems and business problems that he didn't want to jeopardize. He was afraid, and so he quit. So we had 6.
Okay.
And then we thought, well, let's get a public meeting. You know, we talked about it. What do we need to do? You know, we want to help get the Hammonds out of prison. They have been treated unjustly, unconstitutionally. Everybody knows that. But nobody's done anything. And if nobody does anything, that's exactly what gets done. It's nothing. And
Yep.
so let's figure this out. Let's put our heads together. We'll get help from wherever we can. We'll figure this out. And, you know, do we believe that they need to be out of prison? Yes, we do. So, okay, let's use our heads and figure it out. And so we thought, well, if we're supposed to be the voice of the community, we need to have a public meeting to find out what the community really wants. You know, this is a monstrous county. Harnett County is a little over 10,500 square miles, and there's around 7,000 people living in it. There's probably 5,500 of them living in the Burns-Hines area, and the rest of them are scattered out over the 10,500 square miles. That's extremely remote. You know, if you guys are back east, you know, you've probably got 7,000 people within a mile circle of you. It's a different country. It's a place where there's a lot of independent people, a lot of people that live a rural lifestyle, ranching, growing hay, you know, doing things. You know, we used to have a lot of logging in our community. At one time, Harnett County was the highest per capita paid county in Oregon, and now we're second from the bottom. We don't have any logging going on, very, very little, you know. The BLM has caused all kinds of problems. There's a lot of ranches that have sold out to the BLM.
Yeah, it seems like under duress, that's for sure. Hold those thoughts, Chris, and we're going to take this break, and we'll be right back after this. Welcome back. Our guest tonight is former Fire Marshal of Harnett County, Chris Briels. And, Chris, this headline just popped up. Obama signs executive order to legalize BLM's land grabs. How do you like those apples?
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
Nope.
It's not constitutional. It's not legal.
No. It's not. But it's going to get worse unless we stand up. That's right. Okay, so you have been... You got elected the Committee of Safety. So... and you're like, oh, boy, my life's going to change, right?
And it did.
Uh-huh.
It did.
So what happened after that?
Well, we decided what we need to do is get a community meeting. We need to figure out, you know, how we're going to do this and what we're going to do and who's going to have what responsibilities and all of that. And then there was a rally put on by the 3 percenters in support of the Hammonds. And it was a peaceful rally that they did here. Some of the people threw coins out at the sheriff's office, or not at the office, but on the sidewalk, to symbolize the sheriff had sold us out.
Okay.
We as City of Safety decided, well, we might want to walk in that rally, but we're not going to shout insults to anybody. We're not going to throw coins. We're not going to. We'll have our presence there, and that's it. We can hand out some papers with our mission statement on it, so that people understands what we are, so that we can get kind of our name out there, so that we can get people to a meeting. And we walked in that rally, and we stopped by Susie Hammond's house, and she came out and spoke, and it was an amazing thing to be involved in, and it was well regulated. The militia people, the 3%ers, they had a meeting before, and they said, all right, there will be no violence. There will be no violence. We do not promote that. We have our own security people, and if you get out of hand, you will be removed. And I thought, wow, what a self-regulated bunch of people. This is more of a professional approach than some ragtag bunch of crazies. And they did a great thing. They did a great thing. The only problem was that at the end of the rally, or at the end of the walk, when everybody made it the full circle and everything, it was kind of cold outside, but, you know, it's Harney County and it's winter. We thought we were all done, and that's when Ammon went out and occupied the refuge. We didn't have any idea at all that he was headed for the refuge. I'm certain that we would not have condoned it. It caught us off guard, and immediately it kind of discredited our group, because here we are, the Harney County Committee of Safety. We're supposed to be these real influential people in our community, and all of a sudden, Wang, the guy that set us up for this, went out and did something that nobody's ever heard of happening before. And it kind of took us back, and so it's like, wow, now what the heck do we do?
Now, did you try to contact Ammon by phone when that had happened or not?
Yeah, the next day we did. You know,
okay.
You know, what the heck? You know, what is going on? You know, we had several meetings with Ammon out there at the refuge, where the Harney County Committee of Safety would go out and sit down with him and say, okay, now what's going on? You know, first of all, we said, you know, you kind of caught us off guard there, and it almost feels like a stab in the back. And he said that he understood that, and he apologized, but he said that he felt that it was a time for action. And we didn't understand it, you know, and I didn't at all approve of those actions, but he still had the same calm demeanor and the same passionate views on getting the Hammonds out and helping the ranchers. This is a man that's extremely dedicated to his cause. And we started talks with him. All right, what do we need to do? What's it going to take to get you out of here? You know, and we don't want anybody getting hurt at all. We just don't. And I will say right now that before he took the refuge over, before he took over at the refuge, hardly anybody knew anything about the Hammonds and their abuse and their horrible plight that they'd been put into by the government.
Right.
But now it is worldwide. People know about this little dinky town and out in the pucker brush in Burns, Oregon, Harney County, Oregon. It brought national and then world attention to this. So I don't know.
It did do that, yes.
I don't know of anything that anybody has ever done that created this much attention. And so the proof is in the pudding. You know, what he did is he got people aware of a lot of the government overreaches. He got people aware of the way that the Hammonds were mistreated, the way that they were incarcerated, the way that they were let out of prison and then go back to prison because the judge that had given their sentences gave them less than the minimum required sentencing. So they waited till they got out of prison and then they sent them back. That's double jeopardy. You know, it was a
Yep.
mistake. It was a mistake by the court. It was not a mistake by the Hammond. You know, if it would have been me making that decision, said, well, I screwed up, and I guess you should have had a longer term. I'll take responsibility for that. But no, the government didn't do that. They turned around and said, no, you got to go back. We screwed up, but doesn't matter. We're going to throw you back in prison again. You know, and they fined them $400,000 for burning less than 150 acres of sagebrush. And it just didn't ring true. It didn't. It's very, very unfair treatment of some wonderful people. Really very unfair. And what Ammon did is he brought it to worldwide attention.
Yes.
And my hat is off to the man for that. It took a huge, strong backbone and some passion and faith for him to be able to do that.
I said he's got more guts than I do.
People can say whatever they want to about Ammon Bundy, and they can come up and they can get in my face if they want to. But I shook the man's hand. I looked in the man's eye. I have talked with him. I shook Lavoy Finicum's hand. He came and he told me how brave I was. Now, isn't that goofy? He told me.
No, I wouldn't say goofy. It just seems no. You are all brave. You've all had a part in this. Whatever piece of the pie you've had, that was your part to play right now.
Well, I guess you're right. It's just like he's a wonderful man, and he's looking up to me, and I could see what a wonderful man he was. What a gentle man he was. He wasn't a crazy. He wasn't a crazy at all. He was a kind and gentle and very intelligent man. Had a wonderful wife. I shook his hand. I shook her hand. I gave her a hug. I've talked with them. We sat and talked. What great and wonderful people. And now he's been murdered. You know,
we'll get to that here in a minute too. Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, we went out and we decided, well, we have to have a public meeting, and it's going to make it really tough for us to have a public meeting now because we've been kind of discredited right off the bat. But we thought we're going to move forward, and we decided we're going to have a meeting. And so I personally called the fairgrounds, wanted to know if I could book the same building that we had the meeting in before. And they had said, yep, no problem. And is this how you do that? Yep, you just call up, and I got the book here, and I'll put you on the book, and you bring your deposit a half hour before the meeting, and no big deal. Well, the next day, Judge Grasty gets a hold of us and says, no, you can't have a meeting out there. Absolutely no county building will be used for any meeting having anything to do with Ammon Bundy or his group of terrorists is what they called them. And so he denied us our First Amendment, you know, the right to assemble or the right to free speech. And I asked him about that. He said, I'm not denying you your right to assemble. You can meet in a barn or something out there in somebody's field. You can assemble anywhere you want to as long as it's not on any county buildings. And I didn't think that was quite fair. And then, so what are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to have a meeting, you know? So we were denied to have a meeting at the Elks Club. We were denied having a meeting out at the fairgrounds. And then that same week, they had a meeting at the fairgrounds in the building that I wanted to have. And the only thing they talked about was Ammon Bundy and everything. There was lots of news media and people there. It was a public meeting, so we showed up as a committee of safety. And our chairperson, Tim Smith, was able to talk. He got the microphone. He says, yep, we are the committee of safety. We wanted to have a public meeting, but we can't have a public meeting. We've been blackballed at the Elks. We've been told that we can't use any county buildings whatsoever to have our county meeting or have our public meeting. And he says, but we're still trying to find a place to have a meeting. Well, amazing enough, the next morning, then we get a thing from Steve Grasty that says, yeah, you guys can go ahead. My bad, I made a mistake. You guys can use the senior center. So we did have a public meeting at the senior center. There was not a single law enforcement person there at all. And there were 3%ers and people that were exercising their Second Amendment rights and open carry. And
well, hold that thought right there, Chris, at this meeting. Okay, hold it right there. We'll pick that up on the other side of this. Welcome back to the Truth Traveler. Our guest tonight is Chris Briels. He's the former fire marshal for Harney County. And you're having another committee of safety meeting. Now, I noticed as they videotape these meetings, especially the town hall meetings, the first ones, the people in Harney County were pretty antagonistic about this whole thing, but it seems like as these went on, there were more and more people beginning to see we do have a problem. Now, did you notice this with your committee of safety meetings as well, that more and more people were getting on board with this?
Yes, we have had more people getting on board, even though we've had such a hard time having meetings. After we had our meeting at the senior center, where people spoke, we all had a subject that we talked about. A lot of the militia people were there. A lot of people from the community were there. There was a bunch of news media there. The next day, Judge Grasty called me. I was on my way out to the refuge to have a meeting to figure out what we could do, how we were going to be a liaison to get this situation in our county de-escalated. I didn't want it to get out of control. And Judge Grasty called me and he says, you need to distance yourself as far as you can from that committee of safety. He said, it's not a legal group. You guys don't know what you're doing. You're being used like puppets and, all kinds of stuff, and it's like, wow. Thanks, Steve, but we're kind of on track and we're going to try to do what we can to help this situation. We're not doing anything illegal at all. We're not doing anything bad. We're trying to help our community. And he says, your life is in danger. You got to get away from it. And I thought, wow, what is this all about? This isn't right.
Seems like a threat.
Yeah. And I immediately thought, what are they hiding? What are they so fearful that somebody's going to discover? There's a lot more to this than what I thought. And so we continued with our meetings, and then they had and the whole time there's all of these rumors around town about the militia going around and harassing people. The militia was going around and causing problems and scaring people and following people around and all this. And so I went around. I've been in this community a long time. I'm an old man, but I care. And so I went around and I found the leaders to these militia groups. And I introduced myself. I looked them in the eye. I shook their hand. And I was fully ready to be confrontational with them, you bunch of thugs in this town, and I talked to them and said, I was polite. I said, there's a lot of rumors going around about your people are scaring people in this community. We've never seen anything like this. If you guys have any loose cannons, you need to get them under control. And they all assured me, no, we don't do that.
No.
We don't believe in that. We do not believe in that. And no, if we see that, we will stop it. And so I like I say, I have a lot that I depend on when I shake a man's hand and I look him in the eye and I speak to him face to face. That's how you find out where they're at, if you're paying attention to your senses. And these people were sincere. Well, we keep getting all of these rumors and stuff. And people in town were afraid. I mean, afraid to go down the street, and all these rumors going around. It was just horrible in this little bitty town. And I went over to a friend of mine's place. He was going to work on a vehicle of mine. And I walked in the door, and he said, "You've aligned yourself with the wrong people." And he says, "I'm angry." And I said, "What? What?" He says, "Yeah, your cohorts have been messing around, scaring everybody in the whole community, and you need to get it up squared around." And I said, "I don't understand what you're talking about. I don't have cohorts, you know. What? And then he got a call from his daughter, and he says, "Really? They're over there again?" And he turned around and he jabbed his finger in my chest. And he says, "You better go find out what your cohorts are doing at our armory."
Okay, hold it right there, Chris, because we're going to go to break. I don't want to mess this up. We're going to leave off at the Armory. We'll be right back. This is a long break, so if you need a glass of tea or a cup of coffee, go get it. We'll be back in a few minutes for a long segment with Chris Briels, former Fire Marshal, Harney County. Welcome back to the True Traveler. Our guest is Chris Briels, former Fire Marshal of Harney County, Oregon. And right before the break, you'd had complaints. People were kind of getting on you because of the thuggish behavior, quote unquote, of the militia in town, and people were scared. And you were headed over to the Armory to check it out yourself.
Yes. So anyway, the Armory was just a block away. It was on the next block from where my friend was. And so I got in my rig and I went over there, and there were two cars and a black SUV there. And as I rounded the corner, they all took off single file and took off and turned left on Egan Street and went down to Broadway. And the two cars turned right and the SUV went to the left. It had Washington plates on it, so I followed it. And I just stayed a safe distance back. I just wanted to see what they were doing, where they were going. And I saw the guy see me in his rearview mirror, and he kept watching me, and then he kind of went around in traffic a little bit, and I just followed along, wound up right behind him at a stoplight at McDonald's. He was in the center lane of traffic. There was a left turn lane, and then there are two other lanes. When the light turned, he cut right straight across the left turn lane and went into a parking lot, just kind of sped in there. And I thought, oh, that's cool. So I did the same thing. And they drove around in the parking lot, and I just stayed behind them. I wasn't tailgate. I just stayed behind them, and then they finally stopped in front of McDonald's, and I got out, and both the guys got out. There was a smaller guy and a bigger guy, and they both had glasses on. You know, they didn't have anything that said that they were militia. They weren't portraying themselves or anything. They didn't have any 3% things, no stickers, no nothing like that. They got out, and then I said, "Hi there, my name is Chris Briels, and I've lived in this town a long, long time, and don't know if you're familiar with what's going on in this town, but there's a lot of fear going on here, and I just had a friend of mine from over 20 years poke me in the chest and tell me I need to find out what my cohorts were doing, and that's when you were over at the Armory. And so I'd like to know, can you tell me so I can go tell my friend what's going on? Can you tell me why you were at the Armory?" And the guy said, "Well, we weren't at the Armory, you know, and you got no reason to be following us around." And I said, "Well, sir, you were at the Armory because I followed you. And I saw you look at me in your rearview mirror, and you knew I was following you. So please don't be dishonest with me. You know, I'm an honest man, and I just want you to be honest with me. You're not in any trouble. I just need to know what the fear in this community is all about, you know. And if you're doing something cool, then that's fine. I just want to go tell this guy so that he's not afraid, and his daughters aren't afraid." And they said, "Well, we're just two guys driving through town and looking for a place to have a business, and we weren't at the Armory." And I said, "Yes, you were at the Armory." And I said, "Typically people don't start businesses at an Armory." And they said, "Well, we were just looking around, you know." And then the other guy says, "Well, yeah, well, we were actually, we were looking at the deer. There's a big 4-point buck in the back there. And I said, well, that's fine. If you guys like hunting, I can show you where there's lots of jackrabbits to hunt and stuff like that. But we typically don't shoot deer at the armory. And can you just tell me why you were there? And they said, well, actually, we're just hungry. We want to go get something to eat. And I said, if you guys are honest with me, I'll buy your lunch. Help me out here, please. You're supposed to be my cohorts, and I don't even know you from Adam, and they both gave me their first names. And when I asked for their last names, they wouldn't do anything other than give me their first names. And so they were extremely dishonest with me. I mean, anybody could tell that they're dishonest. When I was at Fire, if I did arson investigation, I went to some advanced classes on interviewing people and talking about microfacial expressions and self-adapters and all kinds of things, And we all have a sense if someone's lying to us, and these guys were lying. And when they said again, we're just going to get our sandwich, if that's okay with you, and I thought, wow, now you're going to be smart, I said, okay.
Smart Alex, right.
You guys have a great day, and I just backed the van up and took a picture of the front of the vehicle that had the license plate on it, and I went up to the sheriff's office. Well, our sheriff's office is surrounded with a chain-link fence and concrete dividers across the street, and all the FBI and all the other sheriff deputies and all of that, they're all inside that little compound they got. You can't go into the sheriff's department and just walk in there anymore. You can't do that. I was told you won't see the sheriff. He's in business. He's in his meetings. And I said, I've been on search and rescue for the last 20-some-odd years, and I typically walk right in. And the sheriff is a friend of mine. I know him. I'd kind of like to see how he's doing anyway. And they said, well, you can't do that. If you have a problem, you just call 911, because I told them there was a suspicious vehicle. And I said, well, 911 is kind of an abuse of the emergency system. I said, it's not a life or death thing. It's just some dishonest people, and their vehicle is sitting at McDonald's right now. And he said, well, just call 911. And I said, yeah, okay, fine. I had the dispatch direct number to where I didn't have to mess up the 911 system. And I called and I talked to the dispatcher. I said, Jennifer, I'm being treated like a dirtbag out here. Well, how come? She said, well, Chris, you're not a dirtbag. You're a good guy. I'm sorry. What's going on? And I said, well, here's this license plate number, and these guys are lying. They're not being truthful. And they were hanging around the armory, and the vehicle is sitting at McDonald's right now. And she says, okay, let me find out. And I said, okay. And I drove back down to my friend's place, down back by the armory, and there was a sheriff deputy and a Burns police chief was there. And they were talking, and I come walking up, and what's going on? I said, well, I don't know. Can you tell us what was going on with this vehicle and all that? And I told them, and I explained to them what they'd done and how they'd lied. And about that time, the sheriff deputy gets a phone call, and he says, oh, okay. And I said, what's going on? He said, well, the two cars were undercover FBI people, and the SUV was a rental car out of Washington, and those are undercover FBI people, and we have to keep this a secret. Don't say anything to anybody.
Okay.
And I thought, it's not okay to have secret things going on in the community that are scaring people. You look at it, and it's either right or it's wrong. It's wrong. I couldn't see anything right about it. And so Judge Grasty had a meeting at the high school that night. It was a public meeting, and we as the Committee of Safety were there, and they were passing the microphone around, and they were talking about how all these horrible militia people and all of this and that, and then there were other people that were saying, I don't think these guys are bad people at all. And, so people were getting a chance to speak. And there probably was 30 or 40 police officers, from state police to sheriff's deputies to armed people, tremendous presence of people, of law enforcement people. And we never even had a single one show up at our meeting. that we had at the senior center. And when it came time for the microphone to be passed around, a couple of the people on the committee said, you should talk. You should say something about the committee, you know. And I'm not the elected chairperson or anything. I'm just one person. That's all. But I had told them about what was going on, and they said, you need to talk, you know. And so when I got the microphone, I explained. And Judge Grasty had said, yeah, they've got the Harney County Committee of Safety. I want everybody to know that they absolutely have nothing to do with the county government. They've even got a website with the county logo on it that they didn't even ask permission for, and really ran us down in this big public meeting, you know.
Okay.
And so we got the microphone. So, yep, I'm Chris Briels. I was nominated. I didn't raise my hand, wanted to be on the committee, but I am on the Committee of Safety, and Ammon Bundy did provide us with a website. He paid for it. He paid for our email addresses for the first couple of years, and then he gave us the password, and we are in control of the website now. And nothing is on there now that we don't sanction. There were a couple of things on there that were a little bit harsh for us, and so we took them off.
Okay.
And I said, if you guys had been looking, we have removed the Harney County insignia, the county's logo, because we didn't think that was quite right, and we didn't have permission for that. So that hasn't been there for a day or so. So just to clear things up, we are in control of it. That is us. And I said, then I explained exactly what had happened with the FBI. You know, they said to keep it a secret, and I thought, well, yeah, I'll keep it a secret until I had a microphone in my mouth and I was in front of all these national TV.
I'd love it, Chris.
I told them exactly what is going on, and I was pretty passionate because I was still a little bit puffed up over the whole thing, and the ridiculousness of allowing fear to be spread in our community. I mean, what kind of a bunch of leaders is that? And I was frosted up about that. And so I told them exactly what had happened, and I said, and guess who that was? That was the FBI. And so I ask you guys, where is the fear coming from? Where is the fear coming from? It's not the militia. Those guys were out shoveling fire hydrants the last snowstorm. Those guys have been out there handing out coffee and sandwiches to the FBI and the sheriff's deputies that are out there on patrol and out on post, where they've taken over our airport. The FBI's got the whole airport all locked down, and bright lights out there. It looks like a Christmas tree, you know, and it's ridiculous. And for what? You know, it was ridiculous. Well, after I spoke and that meeting broke up, Judge Grasty came over, and he was very confrontational with me. He didn't like the idea that I spoke up and that I needed to, you know, kind of back down. And
well, hold that thought right there at Grasty. Hold that thought. We're going to take another break, then we'll be right back. Right before the break, you were discussing a confrontation with Grasty. Now, let me ask, did he have an association with the BLM at all before all this happened?
Oh, yeah, he's been working back and forth with the BLM through the county for a long time. You know, he's been in lots of different negotiations with several federal groups. You know, that's
okay.
Part of what he's been doing.
Okay. Well, anyway, he confronted you.
Yeah, he confronted us, and I told him, you know, you blocked us from having meetings. And he says, yeah, that was my mistake. That was my mistake. And I said, well, did you apologize? And because he said, yeah, that was my mistake. And I said, yes, it was. He says, I was wrong. I said, yes, you were. I said, did you apologize? And he says, well, I apologized to such and such. I said, well, you didn't apologize to me. And he says, well, I don't have to run around and apologize to everybody. And I said, how long have I known you? Have I ever walked away from you or anything that there's been? Have I ever walked away from a single emergency in this county? Ever? Why do you treat us like this? And he turned around and walked off again. Well, when I left, the deputies that had been standing around within about 15 feet in a circle around us I looked at one and I said, hey, I appreciate you guys. I have no beef with you guys. And I shook their hands, and they came up and shook my hand. And when we walked out, one of the deputies from another county came up and he said, can you tell me exactly what happened with the FBI? And so I recounted it again. And he says, man, that upsets me. He says, we have told them and told them and told them to knock that crap off. And he says, I to him. He says, this pisses me off. And I said, it's wrong. It's wrong to frighten people in this community. These people have done nothing to anybody. They don't deserve to live in fear. It's wrong. Right. And that's why it's not a secret to me. And he says, well, I will talk to him. Well, the next morning I get a call from Judge Grasty, and he wants to talk to me at the courthouse. So I said, okay. I go up there, and I went through the metal detector and all that. There's armed guards all over the place, and it's worse than airport security. You got to go through and empty things out of your pockets and all of that. And then they scan you with their little wand, and they discovered the metal in my shoulder from an artificial shoulder. And then they found another hot spot where my back's been fused 4 times. And I got the scars to show for it. And so then they decided I must be okay to go talk to Steve Grasty. And he's got this desk. It's about 10 foot long, and it's a big table, and it's about 6 foot wide. And it's a small office. There's 3 doors. I think there's 3 doors going into it. There were 2 officers by one door, 1 officer next to another door, and then the other door, I kept seeing a foot come out. So there was another officer hiding around the corner. And I thought, well, people are really paranoid. And he started the meeting out. He says, we've been friends for a long time, and if that ever changes, I just want you to know it'll be you doing that, not me. And I thought, what a weird way to start a meeting,
Yeah.
And I said, well, Steve, I've got some really bad concerns here. You said last night at the high school that you're spending $70,000 to $80,000 a day on security. And I said, that concerns me. That's my tax dollars. That's a lot of money that could be fixing a road or repairing a school or building a school or going for something. I said, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I said, it's crazy. There's people running around scared in town. I said, it's ridiculous. This has to stop. This is way out of control. And I said, what do you think would have happened if I'd have smacked one of them guys yesterday? And he says, whoa. And he held both hands up, and he says, first of all, you think you're dangerous, and you're not. You may have been dangerous at some point in your life, but you're not. You're an old man. You've got nothing. You're not dangerous to anybody. Your perception is all wrong. You don't know what you're doing. You need to go home and just be an old man and leave this stuff up to us. I said, are you kidding?
Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Are you kidding me?
He's kind of a scary guy. Hold that thought right there, Chris. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. Our guest is Chris Briels, former fire chief for Harney County, Oregon. And you've had this run-in with Grasky, and he's just really being a horse's patoot. Okay, now, Chris, we got a long segment here, then we've got one short segment after that, so we're going to run out of time. I definitely want to have you back on. I really am enjoying the show. But go ahead and finish with Grasky, because I want to hear what this kind of loser did.
Well, I'd like to tell you a little bit about me. I'm 5'10" tall, and I weigh about 220 pounds. And I'm not a fat man. I have a little bit of extra, but not very much. Most of it's muscle. And, and that's not my fault. That's just the way it was. And by the nature of the beast to be involved with the fire service, you're not really intimidated by a whole lot. I've been out on all kinds of emergencies. I've been in harm's way lots and lots and lots of times. And for some reason, I just don't have a reverse when it comes to that stuff. Don't run around causing trouble with people, but I don't run from it, and I don't put up with any guff from anybody. I might be 63 years old, but I'm not harmless. And there's not a day in his life that he ever had enough hair on his butt to speak to me in that manner without 4 officers close by. So some flags kind of went up in my head, and I thought, you know what? People listened last night on national news, and he's catching flack. And he wants to get me out of the equation right off the bat. That's what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. He's trying to intimidate you.
He's trying to get me mad so that I reach out and slap his little noggin off his head. And
one of my listeners wondered if you were going to do that. Okay, Don, there you go. There's your answer.
You know, and normally he would have had a free nap. But something didn't seem right. You know, we've all got a sixth sense. And so I listened to him, and he tells me over and over and over how my perception's all wrong and what a horrible person I am, and I'm not dangerous, and I couldn't hurt a fly, and just, I mean, like schoolboy insults. And the only thing I can think of is it's kind of entertaining. My God, you know, is this all that he has? And then when he got all done, I said, okay, well, you got a piece of paper? And he said, yeah. And so he tore me a little piece off of one of those yellow tablets. And I took my pen out and I looked at the date, and I put the date on it. And I wrote, I, Chris Allen Briels, do hereby resign my position as Harney County Fire Chief, effective immediately. And I signed it, Chris Allen Briels. And I stood up and I put my pen back in my pocket. I said, well, Steve, you have greatly enhanced my perception. I think I see things way, way clearer now. And you have shown your true colors. And I handed him the piece of paper and I walked out.
Very good. I mean, that took a lot of guts right there.
Well, I'll tell you what. That's what I had to do. That was the right thing to do. What I wanted to do would have been a little bit different. It would have been choreographed a little different. But I'm not an idiot, and I'm not going to be baited, and I'm not going to be pushed around, and I'm not going to be intimidated. You know, if you look at something and it's right, then it's right, and you should stand up for it. And if you look at something and it's wrong, then it's wrong. You shouldn't be doing it. You shouldn't be associated with it. And I will not work for a man that is dishonest. I will not work for a man that wants to try to berate me and bait me into getting his own little noggin knocked off. You know, I thought right then, you know, I should have challenged him to a cage match and had it on closed television circuit and used all the money to get the Hammonds out of prison. You know, but it was ridiculous. So I went outside and I called Ammon Bundy to tell him that we couldn't have a meeting, that we had, you know, we were supposed to have a meeting at the fairgrounds, and that they had said, nope, we can't do it now. You know, we do have a meeting, we don't have a meeting. We do, we don't. And Ammon said, are you kidding me? I've got a press conference. He says, you see, because the meeting was so that Ammon could give us his plans for leaving the refuge.
Okay.
What he wanted to accomplish so that he could feel good in leaving the refuge. That's what everybody wants. Everybody wants the FBI and all of the military and all of the law enforcement people to be gone. We want our town back. Well, Ammon's not going to leave while these guys are here, and these guys aren't going to leave till Ammon's here. And so we're trying to coordinate something to where we can get a peaceful community back so that we can start addressing the issues of the federal land grabs that get the Hammonds out of prison and take care of things and then go on about our lives. well, now we can't have this meeting. And I called Ammon and I said, I'm sorry, buddy, we can't have this meeting. He said, are you kidding me? And I said, no. He says, I've got a press conference here to announce my plans for leaving. And I said, well, I don't know what to tell you. You're going to have to tell them that it's been canceled. And the only place that we have is a barn or an old industrial building. Mm-hmm. Neither one of them have any heating or any seating. You know, it would have to be bring your own chairs. And he said, he says, it would be better coming from you. Can you come out and speak to the press conference? I said, yeah, if that's what you want, that's what I'll do. So I drove out there, and then for the second time in a couple of days, I had a microphone in front of my face, and I was very passionate again, and I explained what just had happened, and that kind of brings you up to where that was about. That's where I told everybody that I resigned as fire chief, or the county chief, and I will not work for a man that I do not trust or have faith in.
And I respect that. I respect your desire to, sometimes you just have to, no matter what it does to the pocketbook, you have to stand up for what's right. And that's why I respect you so much, Chris Briels.
Well, we all have our rights. And when people step on our rights, they're called rights for a reason. It's not right to mess with your rights. It's just not.
No, it's not. Well, was Gradsky a little surprised when you handed him in your resignation?
Yeah, I think he was pretty surprised on that, and I think he was surprised that he didn't need a bunch of Band-Aids. Because his little ploy didn't work.
Yeah. Well, I have to wonder if you had slapped him or something, punched him, how long would it have taken them to just haul you to jail?
The jail was right next door within their little compound they built.
It wouldn't take very long, would it?
No.
Now, what about this Sheriff Ward? The way I understand it, and I don't know what your relationship is with him, the way I understand it, he had a relationship, so to speak, with the BLM too, and he was an appointed sheriff as well.
Yeah, Dave took over when Dave Blair retired last year, and he was appointed to that position. And he's not a bad man. He's a good man. He's a very kind and honest man. But I don't think that he had the experience behind his belt to handle the situation. I don't know how many people have ever been involved in the kind of situations like this. The Constitution gives him the ultimate power in his county. He has the ultimate authority. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he knew that, and I don't think that he was quite sure what to do. And I think, this is my speculation, I think he asked for some help. And so the long arm of the big law got around him and started telling him what he should do or couldn't do. And I'm sure the Grasty was in there with both feet calling for, called for the governor's assistance, we're military and all this other crap. And I think Dave Ward kind of got lost in the shuffle. I don't think he's.
I think he got run over. He got ran over. He's been being used, and he's not visible. He's not out there in the public. He's been at some of these public meetings, and the poor guy's face is just beat red. I'm sure he's not having a good time at all. I'm sure that he's not a bad man. I just don't think he's quite sure what to do. And I think this situation has got too big for anybody to do anything with it. So I want to give the man his credit, this due. Is he the man that needs to be in there right now? I don't think he's taken a leadership role here. I think he's taken a following role here. And I don't think that's been within his control. I think he's too easily intimidated by, the feds. Yes.
Yes, he is. And, that's a sad thing. And you you don't have to think that he's a bad person just because he's not doing as much as he could.
No, I just think he doesn't have the experience to do it, and he doesn't know how to conduct himself that way.
Exactly. You give me a Learjet, and I'm going to mess around with it till I wreck it, unless somebody teaches me how to fly. But
that's right.
Having one.
That's right. I know. Well, is it kind of settled down right now out there?
Not necessarily. You know, there were 4 people, you know, after they murdered Lavoie and arrested Ammon and Shauna Cox and Ryan Bundy and Ryan Payne and those guys and the bodyguards. Then Ammon did a stand down order, told them people, go home, we'll fight this battle in court. There's 4 people still out there at the refuge.
Right. Wow, that'd be kind of a lonely feeling, wouldn't it? We'll be right back with Chris Briels after this. Welcome back to The True Traveler. Our guest tonight has been Chris Briels. He's the former fire chief of Harney County, Oregon. This is a real short segment, Chris. We're about out of time. I do hope that you'll come back again soon in a few weeks. But what I've got people asking me right now is there still an influx of like armored vehicles and whatnot coming into your area, even though there's only 4 people left out at the refuge?
Yes, there has been. Some of them have left, and there's other ones that have came back. You know, they've probably got 10 or 20 officers for each one of the 4 people that are out there at the refuge. It's very weird to me.
Yes.
Those 4 got indicted today. There were indictments handed down.
Which 4?
The 4 that are out there at the refuge right now.
Okay.
I couldn't give you their names. I don't know.
That's okay.
But we asked the provost marshal if they could remove the military from this presence and get the FBI out of here. And some of the people that are with the FBI, we don't think are actual FBI people. We think that they're hired by the FBI.
Mm-hmm. Mercenaries. Mm-hmm.
Mercenaries. We don't like it. We've asked for some help. So far, we haven't got any. We fear that there'll be like a Waco type thing with the 4 that are still out there. And there's going to be, there's the potential for having more bloodshed. Lavoie Finicum, his murder is more than enough. And that was a murder. And I will say that on any radio, any TV, anywhere. It was a well-botched mess. And he's a murderer. And there's witnesses that weren't supposed to be survivors.
Okay.
And, the truth will come out. And if I'm wrong, mark my words, if I'm wrong, send me a crow and I will eat it.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, I've seen the video multiple different times. People have enhanced it, messed with it, whatever. I've seen about all of them, I think. And I agree. It was murder. The consensus from a lot of people I've talked to, Chris, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that he got out of the truck. Well, at the first roadblock, somebody had fired some weapons at that, which is why he took off. That's what we were told.
Yes.
Came around the curve. There was a second roadblock, so he went to the snowdrift. He was trying to get out of the truck and draw the attention to him away from the truck to protect the ladies in the truck. That's what we've been told.
That is exactly correct. That is exactly correct. The man was drawing fire to protect the women in the truck. That's the kind of a man that Lavoie was. He was a brave, honorable, good man.
Husband, father, rancher. Yeah.
Yes. If you've watched any of his videos, when he's talking, you can tell what kind of a man he is. You can tell what kind of a good fella he is. or was. You know, what a horrible, tragic waste of life by a bunch of bloodthirsty, dishonest killers. You know, and Aaron, I forgot to tell you this earlier, but I'm pretty sure that my phone has been tapped for quite some time, and I don't care what they hear from me because I'm not lying.
Well, I'm sorry you're having to go through this, Chris. It's kind of a shock to the system when you realize they do that, but they do, and I can certainly commiserate with you on that. I totally understand. And the way I look at it, it's like, whatever. You know, you guys are ratting out your own people, and payback will come to you that are doing this. So stay strong, Chris. There's a lot of people out there that admire you. They like you. They stand behind you.
Well, and I appreciate that. I'd like to have some people stand shoulder to shoulder with me, you know. And if I had any advice, I would say study your Constitution. Study the history of this United States of America and what it means and why they wrote the Constitution, why every single signature on the Declaration of Independence was a member of a Committee of Safety. Why was it Paul Revere carried a note from a Committee of Safety?
That's it. It is very important. Chris Briels, we're out of time. I will call you soon. You take care of you, okay? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. You have a super evening, listeners. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back tomorrow night. Miles from Europe. We'll be going over canon law.